Check this out. Bride price is the amount of money, property, or other form of wealth paid by a groom or his family to the parents of the woman he's just about to marry. It's an established principle in Nigeria that the payment of bride price is essential for the validation of any marriage, regardless of the tribe. Now, bride price is actually the opposite of dowry, okay? Not to be confused. Here's how it works. A bride price or bride wealth or bride token, it's the same thing, is paid by the groom to the bride's parents or family at the time of the marriage. A dowry is money or property brought into the marriage by the bride. The dowry is usually provided by the bride's parents. Right. So, does payment of bride price, does it feel misogyny in Nigeria? Okay, that's what this is about. First of all, I'd say, I'm a big believer in culture and what we're about. We have beautiful culture in Africa. Nigeria, for example, you've got several tribes scattered across the country and stuff like that. And marriages are usually, it's a beautiful thing, celebrated across, families, across tribes. There are slightly different ways of doing things and stuff. But on the topic of bride price, I've been thinking, and this is not something I've just drummed up in the past few days. It's been on my mind for years, based on observations and the interpretation of the idea of bride price and all that stuff, and a lot of this cultural stuff, how they are actually having adverse effect on the society that we live in. So check this. I'm all for culture, right? Because your culture is sort of like your identity, it kind of plays out the background of where you came from and stuff. But the dangerous thing about culture as well is there are some parts of culture that they are deeply rooted in beliefs and ideas that are really sabotaging our lives. As you take a step back and view some of these parts of our culture, you realize that they do much more damage than they contribute, they claim to contribute positively to our respective lives. Just for the record, in fact, I need to clear something up. There are people who have been on a lot of my videos and commenting and call me an Igbo man. I don't know what an Igbo man looks like, but I'm not an Igbo man, okay? I'm a Yoruba man. Yoruba Bombele, I'm a Yoruba man. Is that clear? I'm not an Igbo man. I've had several comments and say I'm an Igbo man, I'm not an Igbo man, though. So I hope that clears that up. Right. The issue of bride price, okay, I personally have a concern because I think it's one of the major things that constantly feel and contribute to the idea of misogyny, that make men see women as commodities. They see women as properties. They see women as, I own you. Immediately the marriage, the wedding process has been, completed and stuff. The man looks at his woman not as his companion. I don't want to have a blanket sort of approach, because I must acknowledge that there are fantastic men out there in Africa, great men that take good care of their women, that have respect, I'd like to believe, for their wives and stuff. But for the most part, it's a common practice that men see their wives, their women, as commodities. I own you. I paid your bride price. I paid extortionate amount. I did this, I did that. You own me, you be in this house, you make babies, you do as you're told and stuff. And it feels misogyny. The guy wants to marry, you approach the family and all that stuff, and they ask you to bring X amount of money, bring this, and usually they bring, the idea, it's meant to be a bride token, as you heard. Now, there's nothing wrong in the process of you approach a girl's family and you express your interest and say, hey man, there's this beautiful rose I want to pluck from your family. I love her. I want to treat her like my queen and spend the rest of my life with her, yada, yada, yada. Great stuff. It's a beautiful thing. And just as part of the process, there should be like the exchange of a reasonable being the objective word in this context, to present as a token of gift whilst the whole ceremony is going on. It's great. But over the years, it's been hijacked, it's been exploited, and it's become deeply rooted in poverty mentality, which is something that's really sabotaged our society and distorted the mindset of a lot of people. I'll give you an instance. I'll tell you a quick story. So about 3 odd years ago, I traveled to Nigeria, went to the eastern part of Nigeria for a friend's wedding. Okay, he was marrying somebody in the eastern part. I'd never been to the eastern part of Nigeria up until that point, and it was great. It was a nice trip. There's so many people that came from overseas and with a Nigerian stuff like that to see another culture and embrace it and all that. It was brilliant. But when I started observing the whole bride price, even when we got there, first of all, unfortunately, the fundamental problem was there's blatant display of how do you say this, tribalism, because he's Yoruba like me, you know, and stuff. Some of these elders, not the girls' parents. The girls' parents are educated, they're wealthy, they're very reasonable, loving, caring people, fantastic couple. But some of these village, you know, extended members and so-called elders, the treatment was they didn't even entertain us. But fortunately, my friend's family went with cooked food, meat and drink, and like they went prepared. We had to eat our own food that we took with us all the way from Ibadan to that part. I don't want to name, you know, the part of them out of respect to that person. But the problem is that sort of exposed me to, I blatantly saw, you know, the disdain and treatment of onion bulbs, the list of gifts. I was marveled. The onions, part of the things that were given, the biggest size of onion bulbs, they were really big. Some of the women in the house, they were complaining, the number was not complete. You see, long story short, the idea of a bride price is who gets what, who splits what with who, what do I get? It's like they are selling the woman. You understand me? In fact, like I said, I was marveled. The mom and dad had no say in the process. They leaned back. It's not about them. It's this extended family, these so-called elders. Then they sat in the living room like there was a letter C shape, and the arrogance. In fact, the tension, you could almost cut through a brick wall with that tension. It was too much. At some point, I had to ask myself that, wait, is this a wedding, or it's like a war? Like some part of the country versus the other part. There's a war. The tension was too much. The man that presided over the ceremony, that was looking at the goods and everything and the amount of money that was dropped by the groom, who is our friend, he was a very diplomatic man, very welcoming, very nice. He was the MC for the... After the ceremony, he was slapped by one of the elders. You know why? Because he was regarded as warming to giving us this kind of warmth and this kind of good reception, which should have been the case. I remember when we were all living that massive living room and going outside, because outside was where the tents and the parties were. Other people sat outside in the compound and stuff. And one of the elders actually slapped him. This man that I'm saying to you, if I'm correct, should have been in his early 50s. And this one of these late 70s or early 80s elderly men slapped him and spoke angrily in their language. And I asked someone, what happened? And they were saying, they said he was being too friendly and all that stuff. Anyway, put that aside. That left a bad taste in my mouth. The wedding was great. The following wedding was great. We had a fantastic time. It was brilliant. It was amazing. And a couple of days later, everybody journeyed back down south and stuff. But here is the deal. When parents turn their daughters to commodities and properties, see, what you're doing is you're in effect telling the man that, hey, you're gonna have to buy my daughter. This is what my daughter is worth. I need a car. I need 20 bags of rice. I need a goat. I need a cow. We need 100 tubers of yam. We need this. We need 7 kegs of palm oil. We need 6 baskets of coconut. I mean, I'm going just randomly off the top of my head. I have seen some ridiculous list of bride price, and my jaw was literally on the floor. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Because the idea is, I've met dudes in like their early 30s, mid 30s, even late 30s. I've seen guys in their early 40s. Like when you're talking and you say, hey dude, man, you're not getting married. And he might have seen a girl or a woman that he wants to settle down with. But because he cannot even afford the bride price. Look, the bride price is the traditional stuff, yeah? Which is separate from then the church wedding. The wedding, the whole idea of all these things is overly priced and blown out of proportion. Nobody's focusing on the health of the marital life. No. They're only interested in the ceremony and how to siphon money. And I believe it's the poverty mentality. I can't imagine myself, me, Phrankleen. In fact, I don't want any man to pay me or my woman a bride price over my daughter. I find it disgraceful. The exchange of a bit of a gift as in terms of warm reception and just to acknowledge tradition and stuff, I'm okay with that. But go and bring a cow, a goat, a car, go and bring the sum of 1 million naira. Nah, because what it means is I'm selling my child. So if she gets into the man's house tomorrow and the man shrugs his shoulder and says, you do as you're told, and she tries to speak back and say, no, this and this, I paid this, I paid for my nose, I did that, boom. I mean, that shouldn't be a justification for domestic abuse. Even if you paid, you have to go and get a bank loan, right? But what I'm saying is it feels misogyny. That's why they look at the wife as a property. I own you. So many women are living in darkness. They're living in marriages that if they get the chance to run out today, they will. And you know what's even funny? I've heard stories of women that run back to their parents and families. They will go back there. Go back to the man. Because why? They've taken money. They've accepted all those gifts. And they are now indebted to the man. They are owned, in a sense, by the man. This thing is crippling our society. I'm all for culture. I'm all for tradition, don't get me wrong, because some people, they don't watch videos, they don't do critical thinking. They're going to come into this comment section and start saying, oh, you are no Igbo man, you are westernized. No! I'm worried about the impact of misogyny on our society. It's disgraceful. That crap, that thing needs to stop. In my own opinion, I think it needs to be eradicated. The emphasis on the crazy list of this, list of that, go and bring this, I actually heard a dude told me this, no word of lie, about a year, 18 months ago, we were chatting on WhatsApp, and he told me straight that the family of the bride, everything they wanted from him ran to the tune of about 7 to 8 million. I was taken up. I said, wait. Do you mean the amount of money you're going to spend for the entirety of the wedding or whatever? No. He said the bride price. I was marveled. Why? For what? Because people actually want to enrich themselves in that process. This is the awkward mentality. And you get some men, they might be wealthy and, oh yeah, bring on the bride price, I'm going to pay anyway. Because the idea is, I own that woman. So the woman can then go to her husband's house and start talking about women's rights, don't treat me this way. Nah, this feels misogyny. Because women are viewed as commodity. I don't care how you try to play it. I watch a lot of these families. How many of these families make emphasis on educating their daughters and their sons on what marital life entails? At least, I get it that each person's relationship is unique. To educate them and tell them what to expect, what to look out for, how to become best friends, how to make it work, how to improve your lives. But all they want is the same thing. This is the same, so I'm going to digress. It's the same idea of, you have some people, just the poverty mentality in Africa, that people, they're poor, they would have 5, 6, 7 children. The man is probably working as a gate man. The wife is probably another domestic worker, or sometimes even a housewife. They just procreate. And when they can't send those children to school, they just say, you, go to Port Harcourt, go to this part of the country, go and live with Uncle James. Uncle James, go and live there like a house help, right? You go to Sierra Leone, go to that family. So basically, they send about 4 or 5 children away in exchange, in return for monthly tokens that they have to leave off. Some of them see their children as a retirement fund. This is what I've said in previous videos. And if you see how adamant some of these African parents are, how aggressive they get with the demands. It's my daughter. Nobody's arguing that that's not your daughter. But I think it's disgraceful that you have to draw up a list. They use that avenue. It's like, such and such is getting married. Susan is getting married. So they must use that avenue to enrich themselves. There is the cash request. They ask for cows, they ask for pounds, heaps of yam tubers, bags of rice, vegetable oil. In some cases, some people even give out cars. I've heard of extreme cases like that. This feels misogyny. Because the so-called heads of the family, you give birth to men. Those men who are brothers or siblings of those women that are being sold away, they lean back. They also believe it's the way forward. It's the way life should be. They go on into life, go into another family to buy another woman, and the vicious cycle goes on and on. Imagine your parents are at the center point of a misogynistic cycle, selling you away into the world. So imagine then, talk less of misogyny at workplace, the cycle of misogyny in your husband's house, and it goes on and on and on. I think this whole bride price thing should be eradicated. What do you think? Let's keep the conversation going on below. It's your boy Phrankleen. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Peace and love. Bye now.